Let's get into the next topic, which is matchups. And there are good matchups that favor the Chiefs, and there are matchups that favor the 49ers. In your opinion, let's start with the matchups that favor the Chiefs first. What matchups do you think the Chiefs can take advantage of against the San Francisco 49ers?
I think what we've kind of noticed, and again, I'm not going to expect everything to be the exact same, not to play out the exact same way, but the interior run game of the opponents facing the San Francisco defense, they have found success. We saw the Lions, and now obviously they have one of the best offensive lines and offenses in football. They were able to exploit running duo inside, opening up lanes and gashing the Niners in the middle of that defensive line. And when I'm watching their defense, it does feel like they play the pass first. Like they're more focused on getting after the quarterback. And when you have that in your mind, you can take that aggression and kind of go after them. And we saw the Packers and the Lions do that. Now the Chiefs want to throw the football, obviously, but I think that they've understood with the interior that they have. Obviously, Joe Thuney not playing in this game will be impactful. But Nick Allegretti stepped in last week and played very well. And early in that game, they decided, they were going to be able to run the football a little bit against, I'll be honest, what I think is a better run defense in Baltimore. And they tried to do that. So I do think that the interior offensive line for the Chiefs can get after them in the run game if they commit to it. And I know you guys have probably seen it. We've all seen the Chase Young kind of not really trying to tackle somebody. If you bring that attitude with Isaiah Pacheco, that's a bad mentality to have because he's going to run somebody over. So the one, at least on offense, what we've seen right now is that I would say that the interior being able to run some duo, some counter, some things to maybe get the linebackers' eyes moving a little bit, because we all know Fred Warner is going to make plays everywhere. So you want to try to move him away from where you're running at all costs and run the opposite direction at times. Some misdirection, some interior run game I think the Chiefs have. Again, if they commit to it and actually run it, they should be able to be successful. I'm not saying they're going to run rip off 20-yard runs all the time, but 5, 6, 7 yards a pop sometimes, I think they can get that done on the offensive side. And the most fun thing I'm very interested in seeing is how the Chiefs attack this offense on defense, because we saw, different game, different weather, Miami come out and try to run their wide zone action at them. And they tried to do that earlier in the season too, in week 9, and they couldn't do anything. The Chiefs' team speed to the edges really showed. And obviously the offensive lines are very, very different. They run different concepts. But the big difference here is that Christian McCaffrey is, while they do want to get to the outside, they can run everything. They can run duo, they can run to the interior, they can run any type of concept at the defense. So I also noticed, the San Francisco 49ers over the past 2 months of football since week 14 have run a ton of zone and not much gap. So are they going to change it up a little bit and run a little bit more power at the Chiefs in this interior, which, to be honest, without Derek Nottie, is susceptible to the inside run up the middle. So I'm expecting them to change it up a little bit and use, the outside movements, try to get those linebackers coming downhill very quickly and get some cutback lanes, get Christian McCaffrey cutting up the middle of the defense. So what I'm looking at for the Chiefs on the defensive side is if they can force them to throw the football, which is, again, not something that you necessarily want to do with, Debo and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. I think they feel comfortable in their defensive players in the way that they've been able to, for the most part, keep the tops on offenses. It's a whole different animal when you're dealing with those guys. But I do think that if they can get them into some of those obvious passing situations, they have the ability, as we've seen with Steve Spagnuolo, to just game plan and throw different things at the wall and confuse even, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. They did all those things. And Brock Purdy's no exception to that rule. He will have some weird stuff to look at. So in that game script, I think the Chiefs have the advantage.
Yeah, well, listen, I can tell that you do watch film, because that's exactly it. I mean, the 49ers statistically have done very well against the run, but it is not their strength on defense. And the last 2 games has kind of been in a culmination of that. And really, the Chase Young effort thing, it got blown out of proportion, not because it's
No, for
not a
sure.
known issue, but because it's been happening and people are just now starting to take notice. We've been
Yeah.
watching it on film, and it's crazy because Chase Young came from Washington. The reason Washington gave him up for essentially nothing was because of the effort. They were willing to just get him out of the building. Now you've got a guy who is playing opposite of Bosa, his college teammate, on a team that is ready to go to a Super Bowl and in a contract year, and is still showing that effort and having to talk about it in the week leading up to the Super Bowl. It is a bit embarrassing for sure,
Mhm.
but it wasn't just him. He wasn't the only one that showed a lack of effort at times during that game. And that was pretty frustrating in that moment. That being said, lack of effort is not why they haven't been great against the run at times this year. Teams that have been able to establish the run and stick to the run have given the 49ers fits. So I agree with you. That is a matchup that you should be looking forward to.
Mhm.
And then that's the matchup for me. You talked about it, the Steve Spagnuolo versus Kyle Shanahan matchup in the passing game. That is certainly one that I'm looking forward to because I also believe that the 49ers will be able to run the football just
Mhm.
as well, if not better than the Chiefs, because Noddy is out. A Minahu is out, and Minahu,
Yeah.
even though he's a
Huge.
rotational pass rusher, also very good against the run. Ex 49er, we know that he's good against the run. So those are big losses for the Chiefs, but Spagnuolo is so crafty. He disguises things at an elite level. And one thing that I will say is I think Brock Purdy playing against the Ravens was the best thing that could have happened to him and prepping him for this game because the Ravens do a very good job of disguising things as well. I think the Chiefs might be the only team in the NFL that actually does a better job at disguising what they want to do on defense once they get outside that first drive. And that first drive to me is so important for the 49ers. They've scored so many touchdowns on the first drive this year. And the Chiefs defense, if they are vanilla ever, it's always on drive one as they're trying to gauge what the offense is trying to do. So the 49ers have to score on that first drive. I think that is going to be super important and crucial to the 49ers winning this Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, especially because, like you said, when they are trying, Spags is the best at those second half adjustments. It feels like he's always figuring out how to, and that's one of the reasons that their defenses have not given up points in the second half.
Mhm.
Like teams just really don't score, and for whatever reason, Spags has like an idea exactly of what they're going to do in the second half. So take advantage of the first half when you can. It's the best statistically, it's the best chance you're going to get to score on the Chiefs defense, but I don't expect this to be a game where both teams just don't score in the second half. It's a Super Bowl. Everything's going to come out, and whatever tricks you got in the bag, we're going to be emptying it out on both sides. You know, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, like it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to this a lot, and when I get to watch these two teams, I know that getting to the Super Bowl is that so that the first one until in 2019, like it was both of our teams at that point were like, we're trying to get back to that point, get into the win column here. Obviously, the 49ers have a ton of Super Bowls already, but it had been a little while, right? It had been a little
A
while.
little while is an
Lost to the
understatement.
Ravens. They've lost to the Ravens, so they want to get back in that win column. Mahomes takes it from them in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what we all watch for. It's what we all want to see at the end of the season. And I mean, this is again one of the, I guess, more obvious picks to be in the Super Bowl before the season. Everyone kind of assumed that the 49ers were going to keep that train rolling and come back and maybe beat the Eagles this time in the NFC Championship game, and the Chiefs maybe get better than they did last year. Obviously, that wasn't exactly the way that it worked out, but we're here, so I'm excited for it for sure.
Yeah, most certainly. Brother Bob says he's on, dude. I don't want to make a bet. All right. We've had two hat bets on this season of Behind Enemy Lines. And I have a rule that I don't like betting on the 49ers because I feel like I jinx them. This goes back to the Harbaugh years. In a year that they went to the Super Bowl, I bet a Rams fan twice that year. The 49ers tied them in one game and lost another, and the Rams were awful. So I put that on me. So I don't like betting, but I've gotten suckered into it twice this year. Luckily, the 49ers won. But I got to be honest with you, Brother Bob, and I said this a couple days ago as well. If the 49ers were to lose the Super Bowl and then I had to find it in me to wear a Chiefs hat because I'm not going to not follow through on a bet, I would be devastated. So absolutely not. I'm not willing to bet. Appreciate you for trying to throw that down there, though.